good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to the Syndicate Theory Podcast, where we delve deep into a broad spectrum of topics, such as politics, the unexplained, science, and much more the world and universe has to offer. The focus for today's podcast is UFOs and extraterrestrials. Some of the questions we will try to answer are: do they exist? Is our government covering it up? Whose theory is closest to the truth? Have we been truly visited? What does it mean to our civilization? And is it beneficial for our society if the truth were ever revealed? We as a Syndicate Theory will discuss these questions with information found in various research conducted by individuals and the government while keeping an open mind on this topic. If you find yourself tuning in to our podcast or recording and enjoy the topics we discuss, please subscribe and leave a like. Enjoy.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Syndicate Theory Podcast. My name's Duke.
I'm Cole.
And today's topic?
UFOs? Am I saying that right?
UFOs or UAPs?
UFO. I don't know how to pronounce that word.
UFOs, man. Unidentified flying objects. And?
UAPs? UAP?
Unidentified aerial
phenomena. Wait, so why isn't it an F? If it's phenomenon, UAF? Unidentified.
Right.
Aerial
right,
phenomena?
there we go.
What is that?
Same thing as phone, right?
Oh!
I agree, right? Also extraterrestrials. ETs. So that's today's topic, man. It's been, out there for such a long time. I mean, I think since ancient man, right? I think there's been recordings of that, things like that. But
heard about
I don't know, man.
Heard about it.
Got to be honest with you. Who do you think got it right?
Who do I think got it right? As in
movies, articles,
Aha, yeah. Okay. Who do I think got it right? Okay, I'm gonna start and tell you who I think got it wrong.
Okay.
I think Predator was probably a little bit far off the mark.
Too aggressive?
Well, I just don't understand this idea of a spacefaring civilization that is going to go and try to find other civilizations and just try to lay the smackdown.
Well,
kind of like a galactic WWE.
They are wrong because first and foremost, a predator, hunts to survive, right? As opposed to being a huntsman, right?
It's kind of like an intergalactic
sports hunter. Yeah, exactly, right.
I think that's coming from a very human place.
It's a very neat idea.
Yeah.
Of course, very neat idea, but not exactly truthful. But then again, I mean, we don't know the truth.
Yeah, the idea that aliens are sort of big game hunters, like some people are. Some people choose to pursue that as a sport. I just think it's internalizing extraterrestrial life, which I think is the opposite direction. If it's extraterrestrial, it's extra. It's outside of our society.
Right.
But then you're internalizing them, saying, hey, what if they're a bunch of hunters and they like to just, big game hunt? And,
right.
like...
I don't know. I would say yeah. They might have gotten it wrong, but once again, we're all talking about theory. Some movies that I think that probably hit it somewhat on the dot. I'd say Independence Day, Close Encounter of the Third Kind.
Why Independence Day?
Independence Day. Well, number one.
You think
for
aliens
me,
love Will Smith, or
yeah, Welcome to Earth, right? But no, I mean, in the basis of research, right? Of course, we got SETI at the beginning of the movie, sending out signals and being able to check these vibrations that are coming in past the moon, right? Mm-hmm. That's somewhat realistic, right? And we can even talk about Stephen Greer later. But as far as UFOs go and aliens go, I mean, that is plausible. They could be coming here for minerals and resources and said, hey, what the hell with you? Let's just take you out while we're at it. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I think was very educational about Independence Day was the idea that when I think the top brass came into NASA or SETI and they were tracking this object,
right?
That I think it had just kind of like emerged from behind the moon.
Exactly. It was cloaked almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they they didn't have any beat on it, and then all of a sudden it just kind of emerged, and then the idea kind of popped up that maybe it was an asteroid of some sort that we kind of didn't catch early, and now it's headed toward Earth. And and I remember the guy said, he was like, no, definitely not. And then they were like, why? How do you know it's not an asteroid? And he said, it's slowing down. And he's like, wait, what? And he's like, it's slowing down.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very kind of bring this sort of Hollywood fictional story back into scientific reality, because you would definitely know that you're not dealing with some sort of asteroid if it was slowing down. So, and I think the idea of it slowing down would trigger so many other things that I've read about as far as how we're trying to understand the universe,
especially human emotion.
Exactly, because I mean, the idea of something slowing down is pretty much guaranteed that there's going to be some sort of force that is not specific to gravity, right? Because gravity is going to keep pulling it forward. It's probably going to even speed up the closer it gets to the object that's pulling it. But if it's slowing down, it has some sort of mechanism that allows it to do that.
Exactly, you're right. And then, it also entails into a couple of things that have been stated out in the past. Like, I mean, do you remember that portion whenever, is it Paris or Africa, whenever it's coming in through the clouds and it's just like a ring of fire with like lightning and clouds just all around it? It's coming in, breaking into the atmosphere. Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny, man, because actually in the Bible, I think it's the book of Ezekiel. I think it's the actual first chapter.
Big Zeke.
Yeah, Big Zeke. There we go. Where he recounts a vision where there's like an immense cloud and it contains like fire that emits lightning and brilliant light. So it continues that at the center of the fire, it looks like glowing metal, and in the fire is what looked like there were 4 living creatures, right? These creatures were described as winged and humanoid, right?
So you're saying that
and they sped back and forth like flashes of lightning, and fire moved back and forth among the creatures. Man, I don't even have to go in far into this chapter, and it already seems like, hey, man, right?
Hollywood once again has pirated from the Bible.
No, right? There you go. You never know, but that is a good theory, right? That's ancient astronaut theory, right?
Exactly.
And that it's kind of daunting how close they were to that, being able to put that in the movie and them coming. And not only that, what about the whole collective, like the hive mind, right? You have like the mother, and then everyone else, right? And they only follow one word. What do you think of that?
That is actually very much...
It's not capitalism.
No,
definitely not. Right?
Definitely not. So it's a society that's structured in a certain way.
Exactly.
But it actually... Not that I think that this movie got it right, but I'll say I am my favorite Alien franchise is Starship Troopers. And they had
that's a good one.
They had the same thing going on. So each planet has like a brain bug.
Space bugs.
Exactly. And they're kind of controlling the rest. So for me, I think that is something that is I can't say it's close to the truth. It's obviously it's theory, and it was put into Hollywood format just
of
so
course,
it's all
theory, yeah.
It can make some money, which can't argue with that. People got bills to pay. But at the same time, I like that idea in terms of who got it right, just because it's very different than how our society is arranged.
Exactly.
We don't have like a thought control leader that is literally tapped into our brains and trying to control us. Advertisers are trying to get us to buy something. I get it, but it's not the same thing as having a hive mind.
I don't know about that. I mean, think about this theory though, right? We have like these ancient astronaut theories, right, that go back, that state basically, the gods are aliens, so they say. Theory once again. They gave us DNA so we could actually evolve, and then they gave us religion. So in that sense, it's almost the same, because we're following God's words, right?
If God were an alien.
If God were an alien.
Yeah,
so it's structured almost in the same way, right?
Yeah.
But now, was it for harm, or was it for us to evolve so we could actually think? and then become knowledgeable. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it reminds me a lot of 2001 Space Odyssey.
Really?
If you...
Awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean,
I remember that.
Which is kind of goes back to who got it right as
Right.
far as the nature of our existence versus other species that exist that are intelligent life forms. Not just like your pet golden retriever, but
right.
sophisticated, intelligent life forms.
Right.
And I think that is a really interesting way of understanding it, because in 2001 Space Odyssey, it kind of, without saying so, alludes to the fact that we are an alien experiment. There was a monolith that was found by sort of proto-man, these
The
kind
apes.
of kind of the precursor to modern day Homo sapiens, human beings, otherwise known as us, right?
Otherwise known as us.
Unless you do not count yourself among the human population, that's fine. You do you. But it basically led to this idea that there was an assistance by alien life that caused proto-man, these sort of apes or pseudo-ape creatures that are the precursor to us, to develop, because he touches this sort of proto-man, touches the monolith at the beginning of the film.
Sends a signal, right?
Well, it causes his brain to develop.
Ah, I see, yeah.
And then in modern times, we send a spacecraft to the moon and find a similar looking monolith on the moon. And as soon as we touch that monolith, it sends a signal out to deep space somewhere around Jupiter. So the whole movie of 2001 Space Odyssey is about the trip to Jupiter to try to find the target of this signal that was sent out from the moon. And so the idea there is that aliens helped us evolve. They put a monolith on Earth that when it was touched, it triggered evolution in proto-man to make us become smarter. And then at a certain point in our development, we became smart enough to create crafts to go to the moon, and there was another monolith that was a kind of like a tripwire that sent a signal to the aliens.
That's a whole lot of monoliths, man.
Yeah,
I mean, they had the time to sit there and build a whole bunch of monoliths, man. So there's a lot of thought that was put into this.
Exactly. So it does seem not even so much, like I said, I think Predator is a little bit too much like trying to say aliens are similar to us in the sense that, hey, big game hunters. I think that's internalizing it a little too much. But I think the idea of scientists with the monolith, as far as having one on the moon that'll trigger a signal that'll send to the aliens, once we've reached the development that we can actually travel to the moon, it'll let them know, and they can come back and maybe decide what they want to do for the next part of the experiment. That's just pure science.
I think that's absolutely, I mean, that was a good idea by them. And once again, falling back to the whole Predator thing, I think with Hollywood, I think it's more about visitation, right? They had to find some different reason for visitation as opposed to, hey man, I'm here just to study your body. It's more like, I'm coming here to freaking hunt you down and murder you.
That triggers me too. You're here to study my body.
Exactly.
Hey.
Yeah. But no, going back to becoming a knowledgeable civilization, I would say that I think we're getting there in the sense that we're starting to realize UFOs, once again, unidentified flying objects, or UAPs, which are aerial phenomenon, right, that are unidentified.
What's the difference?
There's really no difference. It's just the government's way of like saying, hey, these are two things. And there are studies that are out there, and I think there's a shift in focus for a while. But let's just go over this. Like, number one, I mean, the government's been studying these UFOs for a very long time. Of course, we're going to be amazed by something that flies, past supersonic. Of course, not making any type of like breaking the sound barrier. Well, they do break the sound barrier without the actual sound barrier being broken. If you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But not trying to be super scientific here, but it's very amazing in the sense that these guys have done lots of studies on this. I mean, I think the first ever, or even before that, but Project Blue Book was one of them, and that's basically just studying UFOs, trying to figure out, where they came from, what are they? And UFOs, once again, it could be a rock for some reason that's magnetically charged, that's just spinning around in circles for some reason, that's up in the air. we don't know what it is, right?
Right.
I mean, it could
Right.
be some type of space rock or whatever, or it could be a flying object filled with creatures in it.
Right.
Right, so-
Because UFO just means it's unidentified, it's flying, and it's an object.
Superman.
Yeah.
You could be Superman.
Superman could be a UFO, technically.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
doesn't necessarily have to be an alien or an extraterrestrial, even though Superman is an alien and an
But
extraterrestrial.
you would report it to MUFON. You'd be like, hey, blah, this and that. MUFON is basically, it's a private sector research company that just researches all UFOs. I think MUFON took over 494 cases of sightings within the last couple of years, but this is
Say what?
but this is only from the DIA though, the Defense Intelligence Agency, not including their own. You get what I'm saying? So there's been a lot of sightings out there, but as far as the government goes, like good old Senator Harry Reid, he's been fascinated with UFOs for a very long time. And I think back in 2007, he didn't fund, but he helped get started with a program called AATIP, if I'm correct. So it's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And it was basically just to see what these UFOs were. Are they a threat to national security, right? And then, go ahead. You're going to say something?
My question was in regards to Harry Reid as far as his interest in UFOs, because we already just talked about the idea that just because it's a UFO doesn't necessarily trigger the concept of alien life.
Of
right?
course. Well,
It
that's
could
exactly
be-
like what Marco Rubio said here. I think it was in Florida, where I think he just recently stated, because I think he's like on the intelligence committee, that despite whether it's ET or whatever, we just want to know what it is.
Exactly.
So, I mean, they've done research for a long while, and supposedly, of course, it's the government. They say, hey, we're shutting the program down after years of study and collecting data, which is kind of funny because they fibbed. And the only reason why we know that they fibbed is because we have a physicist named Eric Davis that came out of the program. He's been a contractor for the DoD since, I think it's DoD, yeah, it is the DoD, since 2007. And he said in 2012 all they did was just shift their focus from basically threat identification to, I believe it's Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, which is the AAWSAP. Of course, its acronym is government. We all love this.
Yep.
But yeah. So there's a shift in focus. Basically, that's what he said. And then I have a quote, and I believe this is the funny thing. Okay, and he's been around studying
like
these
the
things for
Will
years.
Smith Independence Day Welcome to Earth quote? That was a pretty boss quote.
Well, that was very boss. You can't beat that. From what I've seen is he said the focus of study was just shifted, right? So the astrophysicist adds that in the program has morphed and is under a new name and new management, right? And the last guy that was managing it, I think his name was Luis Elizondo. Right now, as it's stated, he said that, he's examined material, okay, from a UFO that crashed, okay, and he says, like, look, man, we failed to determine the source of this material, and I know that it's not here from Earth, which led him to conclude there's no way that we could have made it ourselves. So that kind of gets you thinking, but...
Is he saying that it's from materials that we don't really have?
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
That's exactly what he stated.
Huh.
But he said that's all I can say as of now. And of course, we already know what's coming up here in the next month.
Did he
right?
did he disappear after saying this, or is
Of course not.
he's still
No.
around? Okay.
No. But no, like,
How deep does the rabbit hole go?
Oh, it goes deep, man. Because so Harry Reid actually has a friend. I believe his name is Robert Bigelow that started Bigelow Aerospace, and he was awarded a contract, I believe from the DoD,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing tons and tons and tons of research, and he's actually generated a whole bunch of, I think 400. Oh, this one's actually also around 400 and something pages of documents of worldwide UFO sightings.
Mm-hmm.
So, the other interesting thing about this too as well is that he's actually got material as in like just research from the Defense Intelligence Agency as well.
Okay.
Now the funny thing is that he's actually going into studies with his company, Bigelow Aerospace, in detection of high resolution tracking of vehicles. I wonder why they did that. Hypersonic velocities to warp drives, dark energy, and manipulation of extra dimensions. Man, what do you think about all this? I mean, is there some reason why they shifted this focus? What's your thoughts?
Well, I did notice the date. I'll tell you that. You said it was back in 2012.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been...
Well, let me include this, though. I'm sorry to cut you off, but also as well, I mean, this program has been continued on past 2012. That's the AAWSAP, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that program has continued on with the shift in focus, of course, with weapons. But now the Department of Defense, they just approved the establishment of the UAP Task Force.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's ran by ONI, the Office of Naval Intelligence. Let me just add that in. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's interesting the timing of 2012 because that would have been around the time of the election in the U.S.
Right.
Where President Obama would have been reelected
right.
as president. So and I make that distinction because you can only be president for 2 terms,
right?
Constitutionally. So I think a lot of second-term presidents will make a lot of changes just because you don't have to worry about reelection because it cannot happen at all. You could be the best second-term president in the history of the country, you ain't getting reelected because it would be unconstitutional. So you can make certain shifts that you wanted to make in your first term that might have gotten you a little bit of heat, might have created a little bit of static between you and your base or even you and your own party, and just get away with it. Like, hey, I'm not coming back anyway, so I can make that shift. So I did notice that. And then at the same time, I think a lot of it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier as far as what really is unidentified. Like, we don't know what it is. Is it a threat? Is it benign? We just don't know.
Is it a flying squirrel?
Yeah, it could be Rocky Raccoon. You know, look. You know, don't just look in the sky.
Rocky was a squirrel.
Rocky the squirrel. Thank you, Rocky the squirrel. Yeah.
Rocky Raccoon.
Awesome. Well, I think I got it confused with Rocket Raccoon.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Who is an extraterrestrial? So
exactly.
all this talk about aliens is really blowing my mind because I'm confusing alien raccoons with earthbound flying squirrels. So
exactly.
But the reason for the shift, I have to start with the foundation. I really don't know. There's a lot of information out there, but I think the interesting thing about this is that it's not just something that's happening here in the U.S. So
it's continuous information.
It's continuous information,
worldwide.
And it's not just U.S. politicians and officials who are discussing these issues. Last year, so what are we? We're in April of 2021. In December of 2020, so some 5 months ago, there was an interview with a guy by the name of Haim Eshed,
Haim Eshed, yeah.
Who is a general. He's an Israeli general who was the former head of...
He was a professor, I know that.
Yeah, he's a professor now, and he was the former head of the Israeli Defense Space Directorate.
So like the DIA, basically, Defense Intelligence Agency.
Yeah, but the specific space branch of it.
Oh, man.
So the people who are kind of looking, and it's not, to be clear, he's not necessarily trying to defend against extraterrestrials. He's trying to defend Israeli space interests, so satellites and things like that, from interference from other governments that have
Space Force.
Exactly.
Same thing.
Other governments that have satellites and are space
that could be
nations.
Spying or doing weapons of mass destruction. Destruction.
Because if some country creates some sort of disturbance, it can interfere with certain satellites. I remember a few years back, China was but China was testing a ballistic system to see if they could knock out one of their satellites that was getting old and they wanted to decommission it. So I
heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, they just wanted to make sure they had the technology set. If they could actually send a projectile from Earth into space and hit a satellite, right? You know, keep in mind the satellite's orbiting the Earth, so you're hitting a moving target, right? You're not shooting fish in a barrel, and they were actually able to do it.
Complex mathematics, man.
Yeah, complex mathematics, trajectory, because the Earth is spinning, which is going to affect the trajectory of the projectile.
Curvature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The satellite is moving because it's orbiting the Earth, and so it's really complicated. But they tested it to see if they were able to do it by destroying one of their own satellites. But the U.S. launched a complaint saying, "Hey, you know, it created space debris when you destroyed this satellite. You know, pieces went everywhere, and it interfered with some of our satellites." Right. So, it's not just sort of the geographic Earth that is kind of in play here. You're talking about, we have to defend our interest in space. We have satellites, pretty expensive pieces of hardware up there. So he was the head of this space directorate and for Israel, and he basically said that there are multiple governments here on the planet, right? And this was in an interview with an Israeli newspaper called Yediot Aharonot. I hope I got that right.
That's hard to say, man, but hey, bravo to you for actually doing it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to need a timeout after that one. That was tough. Yeah,
Roger that.
Hey, timeout, coach. But he basically said that there are multiple governments involved with multiple species with an S. So
wait,
not
what?
just one species, right? Like the movie, but
so we're talking about grays and greens, right? The aliens.
There
right?
may be reds and blues. There may be reds and blues.
So
there may be red. So he said, yeah, there are multiple governments who are collaborating with multiple species, and he said there is a galactic federation, which I thought was kind of cool because I'm a big Star Trek fan, right? In Star Trek, you have the Federation, right, which is pretty much the same thing. A bunch of different species who are sort of collaborating their efforts in exploring space.
Look,
he said basically that's what's going on.
I'm going to interrupt you just real quick right here.
No interruption. Go ahead.
This is my thing.
Do your thing.
I mean, you're thinking about Harry Reid, Eric Davis. I mean, we're also talking about Robert Bigelow and Luis Elizondo. Let me see if I get this right. It's Haim Eshed, right?
Haim Eshed. General Haim Eshed.
Which is a general.
General professor. Yeah,
you're looking at people with high education.
Yeah.
Telling us, hey, you know what? We either need to be looking out there or we've already found something. Right? And once again, I mean, I haven't seen it myself. So I can't say it's fact or it's proven. But when people are sitting here talking to you about it, especially with this high of an education, what do you think, man? I think
it's important to realize when you're dealing with a qualified opinion, and I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. It's a qualified opinion.
Haim Eshed, a military general, former head of the Israeli Defense Administration Space Directorate.
Well, what did he say about Trump? I did read part of an article about this, about Trump and what he had stated.
Yeah. And this is why it's good to point out. This is a qualified opinion, right? It's not just someone famous like somebody who does L'Oreal commercials saying, I believe in aliens.
Didn't he tell Trump, or he stated that Trump wanted to come out and actually talk about these so-called species that are already here?
Right. He said that President Trump was interested in making a lot of this information about the government's collaboration with species public.
Okay, all right. So, but he was stopped.
Yeah, he said that some.
So would we get into Men in Black territory here? What's the deal?
Well,
I mean, who can stop the president?
Well, that kind of goes back to Who Got It Right, right?
Right, exactly.
The Men in Black movie, is that legit how it works? Because in the movie,
they're an agency that works outside of the government, right?
Exactly. Which when you talk about being outside of the government, you're saying outside the official chain of command. Interesting. Right? Because if you're outside the original chain of command, you have instances where you can be working on things that.
But I think that man, when it comes to like Who Got It Right, like the Men in Black, I could actually see that happening. And the thing is though, is that I mean you can go watch on the History Channel or just knowledge is at your fingertips. Go type in Men in Black, and you'll get all these like. Historical articles about people. I even forgot that guy's name, but he was he worked at Area 51. Said that he was going to go and spit out a whole bunch of stuff, and he ended up disappearing. Right? They gave him a warning, but I mean, that's my thing, man. Like, so many articles out there about this. But yeah, besides the Men in Black, man, I think there were a couple other people that kind of came close to it. And like, here's my thing, okay? There's 3 areas, right? Number 1, we can have close encounters of the third kind, where they come here just to kind of, check us out, right? and whether it be like they're checking on our well-being and their research and
alien
whatever.
peeping toms, yeah.
No, it is what it is, right? So, I mean, that's kind of a good idea. The second one, of course, we already talked about Independence Day. And then, I think the third one's like Stargate, right? So, we talked about Independence Day. What about
Stargate?
Yeah, okay, yeah, what about Stargate? I mean, like,
alien tricksters. Yeah, they left the Stargate.
Well, they posed as deities.
Yeah.
But this goes back into the whole ancient alien thing where, I mean, they've got depictions that date all the way back in the day, during the Egyptian periods. I mean, they've got pictures, like, I think one of them's like the helicopter glyph, which was an ancient Egyptian. They got the petroglyphs, which was from Italy, right? And it's Val Camonica, I believe that's where it was found. But this is like, it predates, it's like during the caveman era, right? I mean, and then of course, like we spoke about Ezekiel, which was in the Bible. Once again, this is all theory.
Something like, what, 2,000-3,000 years ago or something like that?
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like, we've been visited in these so-called deities, right, have what it would be like the modern day ET, like their powers and everything that we've kind of seen, and the depictions of what they look like. The thing that really interests me is the depictions of aliens has not changed, starting from the Anunnaki all the way till now, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that's pretty interesting. But back to the whole point with Stargate, man. I mean, that is a possibility, right? I mean,
got it right? Yeah, it's Stargate.
They could. Yeah, I mean, they could just get us, through the Stargate and use us as, slaves. What do you think, man?
I think that probably missed the mark. If we had alien slavers, I think we know about it. And that's, in fact, we probably wouldn't be podcasting if we had alien slavers.
Well, what about this though? Okay, so we're thinking about this, and remember, this is all theory, right? So this is all this isn't like, we can't really call it rational thinking, but we can come close. I mean, during that time period, those people probably thought, hey, these are our gods, and we want to please and appease our gods, right? Yeah. I think it was kind of cool how, and I believe this was based on Eric von Donigen's book, but the wormhole, right?
Okay.
Traveling through this wormhole to get to the opposite side of the known universe. Or, I'm sorry, not universe, the known galaxy. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it's totally a viable situation, actually. I think that probably, and this is total theory, don't hold me to this.
Of course. Everything's theory, man.
I think that a lot of the ancient accounts of gods and extraterrestrials may be a lot better of a resource than even modern depictions, because I think our modern psyche is definitely affected by Hollywood advertising. If you went and got a McFlurry last week, why is that? Because you saw something on TV or on a mobile app. This pop-up came up, this advertisement, hey, grab your McFlurry today. Currently new flavors and things like that.
Right.
So our minds are at this point in our history are so inundated with so much content.
Right.
Even podcast, right? So I think a lot of these depictions that you see, cave drawings or whatever, some of these sort of imprinted carvings from some of the Egyptian hieroglyphs that show things that look like flying saucers and things like that are definitely worth studying, and it is definitely worth sort of trying to match that up against descriptions in religious texts like the Bible and what have you, to try to figure out what is really a plausible explanation for what they saw, just because I feel like it was an unfiltered version of the truth. Versus, now you see something in the sky, you can't explain it. You can always joke, hey, it was an alien, hey, Men in Black, like we're talking about, who got it right? But back in the day, no TV, no Hollywood, you see something in the sky.
It's God, dude.
And you have no sort of context.
There's
for
no
explaining
bearing
it. Yeah,
as to what that is.
Yeah,
right?
I in fact I remember hearing about this experiment that they once did of like some native tribes, and I think it was like the Amazon or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were trying to figure out, how do we conceptualize stuff that we can't explain just because we've never seen it before and we don't understand how it works. And so they showed them a locomotive, right? They showed this native tribe. They
heard about that. Yeah.
They showed them a locomotive. And they knew these people, because they lived deep in the Amazon, they had no idea what a locomotive even was or what it was for or how it worked. And they said, hey, what did you see? And all of them said, we saw a bird. And they're like, what the heck? And so they went back and slowed down this video projection they did. And they're like, sure enough, during one frame in the corner, a bird kind of flew by. Just real quick. So much so that the people that made the video didn't even realize it, because they were just focusing on this locomotive. Like, let's show them this locomotive that they've never seen before and see how they conceptualize it. So it came as an unfiltered point of view. Like, they couldn't say we saw a locomotive. They had no word for it, but they could say we saw a bird because they knew that. So I think a lot of these, like you're saying, a lot of these accounts of gods and things coming from the sky, beings, this sort of thing, can be seriously investigated, because I think they come unfiltered.
Exactly.
Right? If I see an experimental jet, and this kind of goes back to our point, UFO does not necessarily mean you're talking about aliens, but if I see an experimental airplane...
Well, not even experimental. What about the SR-71, man?
Oh, yeah, my favorite. Right, so perfect example.
The Blackbird.
The Blackbird, right. So the SR-71 was this very advanced spy plane that had its first test flight in December of 1964. Right. And then it became commissioned by the United States Air Force as a spy plane. And this thing was sick. This thing could fly super high.
Yeah. Super
fast.
Yeah.
And take aerial photography, basically spy photos of any foreign site that the U.S. government was interested in. And I got to tell you this, dude, this thing is amazing, because this thing was never shot down. I mean, you're flying in enemy territory.
It goes to your theory.
It never gets shot down, right? It never gets shot down.
It goes to your theory about, like, somebody, like, I believe, like, what happens if you're just this random guy that was on a farm, not in Russia, but, like, one of the smaller countries, like,
yeah.
And they look up in the sky and they're just like, the hell was that?
Exactly.
Right?
Well, because the whole point of the SR-71, it's a spy plane, so you're supposed to be flying in hostile territory.
Which could be considered
UFO.
A UFO.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And so that would be the point. Like, if you're some farmer from Estonia or Latvia, a former Soviet republic, right? And let's say there's a nuclear facility 30 clicks down the road from where your farm is.
Roger that, yeah.
You know about the nuclear facility, but then the fact that a foreign government like the United States Air Force is going to be flying this super sophisticated, super fast plane that you've never seen before. It doesn't move like a normal plane, right? Especially for 1960s, right? Planes just didn't move as fast as even they do now, even jets. Yeah. So you see this thing swoop out. It's very sleek. It's very high up. It's just not doing things that planes do. And maybe you see it just for a little fraction of a second, or maybe a second and a half, 2 seconds, something like that, because it's super high, dips out of a cloud, takes some photos, dips back in the cloud, and you're a simple farmer, plant seed, harvest time, this sort of thing.
Not space vehicle or aerial vehicle.
Yeah, you're not even
fast.
you're not even like an engineer or a mechanic or something.
Yeah.
You're just a farmer. You see this thing, and I mean, it is a UFO.
It goes back to that whole Amazon tribe, right? Just
Exactly.
not knowing what the hell it is.
Exactly, and I think our current perceptions are a little bit more filtered
Of
because
course.
we're sitting here talking about Men in Black, Predator.
TV, we got TV knowledge at your fingertips, right?
Exactly. I mean,
Computer,
aliens are
just
even
like-
in commercials. We have commercials that put aliens in there. So I think this
Yeah.
idea of extraterrestrial life piloting ships that we don't understand is something that is very much a bias that's been programmed into us. Whereas back in the day, even going back to the 1960s, just because there wasn't as much as far as movies about aliens, the further back in time you go,
Right.
the more you're going to have an unfiltered view of what happened.
Right. Now as far as information goes, right? That always seems to be the number one thing in all of these movies that have to do with aliens, right?
Mm-hmm.
The government knows. Oh, we know about Area 51. Now here's the thing. I've read some interesting articles. One about Big Papa Bush. Okay. Bush Senior.
Poppy Bush.
Bush
Yes.
Senior, right? Well, according to these articles, this guy, of course, he was the head of the CIA, right? The director for years upon years, especially
Heard of it? Yeah, heard of it.
Jimmy
CIA,
Carter's administration, like during that time. And Jimmy Carter, as his campaign, he was like, you know what? I want to get the truth out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Big Papa Bush and say, hey, man, I'm going to try to learn as much as I can from you about it. Well, guess what? Bush Sr. said, you know what? Just because a president needs to know doesn't mean it's need to know. And this information is need to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that relates back into the whole situation with, information and why it's not being put out is because, according to these articles, okay, once again, I mean, these could be written, this could be false. But there are different types of, I would say, information from presidential campaigns or people wanting to get the information out that haven't been able to do it. And I just, what's stopping them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very interesting. What do you think?
I think it kind of goes back to what we were originally talking about as far as inside of the chain of command, right? Like, you have government agencies. All government agencies are under the executive branch, so they answer to the president. And then these, what are called, I've heard them called several things, but I think the kind of dominant term is the USAPs, which stands for
Right.
Unacknowledged Special Access Projects, which
Right.
are just because, unacknowledged is just like unidentified. You're not saying it's exactly projects that are experimenting with alien technology or anything like that.
Right.
It's just something that is not official in any capacity. Whereas, the CIA, they operate overseas. We know they exist. We don't know the extent of what they're doing, but we know they're out there.
Right.
So these unacknowledged special access projects are apparently so secret that, like you said,
Yeah.
with Carter, even the president can't really get access to them.
Exactly. And it boils down to that, I guess, like you were saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the most that they can serve is what, that 8 years, right? So why would
Yeah.
you want to give information to a guy that's only going to be around for 8 years, and you don't know if this guy's going to go around talking about it, right? Because
Can you keep your mouth shut
Exactly.
after 8 years? Yeah.
Exactly, man. Like, it's, I think that's pertinent information right there. So I could kind of understand why, some of these government entities say, this isn't going to happen. We're going to put the smack down. But the funny thing is, though, is that even Big Papa Bush said that he was going to go on his campaign and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to release this information. Did he ever do it?
Not to my knowledge.
Exactly. So, I mean...
Well, you know what I think? I think the rule should be this. I think the rule should be... And this is something that's going to be really hard to break, because a lot of presidents were like frat boys, right? I think Bush Jr. was a frat boy. I think wasn't Clinton a frat boy? Because one thing we know about frat boys, they can't keep their mouths shut. So we're not going to disclose any special access projects to anybody
you're right.
Who can't keep their mouth shut.
You're right.
He's got to go bragging to his boys about anything.
You're 100% right. What happened to Nixon and Jackie Gleason?
Bragging to his boy, yeah.
And I think that's what got everybody in trouble. So no other presidents were allowed. So the whole story, the article was that, Nixon was over in Palm Springs visiting, right? And he just disappears for a whole entire day. Mm-hmm. Come to find out, he's with Jackie Gleason, takes him to, I forgot what the air base was called before, but it's called Edwards Air Force Base.
Okay.
Now. And takes him over there. And apparently that was the mock Area 51. Mm-hmm. And they had aliens that were there. And good old Nixon pulls up to the security post and says, "Hey,
I'm here with my boy."
They let him right in.
I'm here with my boy. Let me in. Yeah.
And he takes Gleason in there and he's like, "Hey, check them out."
Yeah.
Right. And there are articles like even his wife was saying he couldn't eat for 3 to 4 days. He was so astonished by this.
Wow.
Right? So,
wow.
I mean, I think that's the big thing. And then what it pulls to your point, right? A bunch of frat boys, man. You're just going to sit there and just, try to show off what you know.
Exactly.
That's
you got to bring Jackie Gleason, who, to be clear, Jackie Gleason was a private citizen. He wasn't in government or anything like that. He was just the president's boy. So, let me go show my boy what we got on tap here, So I get that. I get the fact that the nature of these projects would be so sensitive that even a president wouldn't have access to them. Like, literally the president could just be some like hippie frat boy that kind of cleaned himself up and was able to slap together a good campaign. All of a sudden he's president of the United States. You've had a 25-year program experimenting with alien technology going on. You're gonna give it to this guy?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there's dudes I would love to see as president, but I don't know if you would want to drop this. I would even say Matthew McConaughey would probably be a great president. Love the guy.
I would take Colin Powell over McConaughey.
I would take McConaughey over Powell.
I'll take Powell over Matthew.
But
he'd be going up to aliens going, all right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that Powell, even though I would vote, for McConaughey over Powell, I would still say Powell would probably be the better guy to handle any sort of top secret clearance as far as alien experimentation goes.
Hey, I got me some aliens here. Do you guys want to come visit?
Yeah, no, that's another thing. I think
Matthew
McConaughey was a frat boy, wasn't he, at University of Texas? So I think he'd have some of his bros up in there, like, hey, y'all want to see what we all got up in here? all right. It's like, hey, you might want to bite your tongue. Get ready. It opens up. There's like this alien laboratory where you got like, experimental technologies and stuff. People jumping in and out of wormholes, stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think you would want anybody who would, definitely have to get his brag on about that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it makes absolute sense that some of these programs are outside of the official chain of command.
Yeah, definitely.
Not mad about it. I think it would be.
It's a good way to control because, the government controls the people who controls the government, right?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, we can't really say that people or these entities control them because it's all theory, but it does make sense, right? Because of what we've seen. And coincidentally enough, like all of these things happened within a time period of what we were saying. So it makes this theory a little bit more factual as we go along. But another thing that I think some of these movies, even books that got it right, is that, these aliens basically said, hey, I'm going to put some DNA up in these guys. Right? Back when we were like primates, right?
Sounds like a pickup line. I don't know.
Well, so the whole discussion with these ancient alien theorists, their theory is that, like, there's one where they say that, why would man have hair? And then all of a sudden, like, there's something wrong with the evolution because why would we have hair and then all of a sudden...
You're talking about, like, proto-man.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, proto-man, and then have no hair at all to go and kill a beast to put hair back on. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Evolutionarily, yeah.
The evolution just doesn't make sense.
We evolved from apes that had, full body cover of hair, and then
somehow magically
to the so-called naked ape, right?
Yes.
Mankind, and then now we have to,
What made that jump, though? See, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, we have to, harvest flowers or cotton or whatever you want to call it, or kill animals and take their fur to reclothe ourselves because we've evolved past having our own clothing. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, so ancient alien theorists, like I stated, like they believe that we are structured, or our minds are structured somewhat like the aliens, because I guess, like you said, like ancient man, right? There was only one hemisphere. Then all of a sudden, for some reason, biologically, we have two hemispheres, right? That allow us to think and create, right? So I mean, what are your thoughts on that, man? It's just like this evolution, with aliens, man. It's like alien DNA.
I think for me it goes back to the good question that we started with: who got it right? And so I did a bait and switch. I said, okay, here's who I think got it wrong, right?
Right.
Because I was.
We're not talking about Predator again, right?
No, we're not talking about Predator. We've already dismissed Predator. Right?
Exactly.
Wait, what's that in the corner? Oh my god! No. It's just Shadow. Okay.
No, that's the main Blackman.
But I think the thing that kind of has me leading into it is because I think the film, which is not really a film, it was a series, and it's not even really like a live action series, it's a cartoon that I think really got close to the way it probably works. If all this stuff, we can kind of combine it into a theory and say that it's probably mostly factual, was this cartoon that came out in the late 90s. It was produced in part by Steven Spielberg, and it was called Invasion America.
I think we talked about this earlier a little bit, right?
Yeah. So this one was basically the main character is this guy, David Ruscha. David Carter is his Earth name, but his father was an alien, and his mom was a human being. And so he is actually the prince and the heir to this great empire. And his father is Kale Ruscha. So the aliens, who are led by his uncle, are calling him David Ruscha. And his Earth name, because his Earth family is the Carter family, he's David Carter. So he's basically half alien. He has all these powers he doesn't know about because he was never told. He was told his dad went away, but he was never told that his dad was an alien. And
which kind of relates to like the demigods, right?
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to your sharing DNA
right.
thing. And then at the same time, the government knows about these aliens, and they have done some experimentation to the point where there are these two people who are like twins.
Race to which mountain?
Exactly.
Right.
Or like with the alien kids. Exactly. Yeah. Same scenario. But they have been cloned from human DNA mixed with alien DNA. So their mother, quote unquote.
Species
as well.
We can just name them all, right?
Their mother, even Star Trek, you had people who were like Spock. He's half human.
Right. Exactly.
Vulcan. Is it?
I think it's Vulcan. Yeah. It's
Vulcan,
half
human, half Vulcan. Counselor Deanna Troi was half human, half Betazoid. So this whole thing about alien-human hybrids, deep in pop culture, and you had David was kind of a natural-born alien-human hybrid because his parents actually got married and produced him. But then you had these two twins who had the same powers as the aliens, similar powers, and you later come to find out that they are hybrids, but they were grown by cloning from the government, and then their mother, who they consider as a human scientist, who gave up her DNA so they could be cloned. So she's not their sort of mother in the sense that she gave birth to them, but she's mother in the sense of that they took her DNA to clone these alien twins.
In a sense, what you're trying to say is like, I would say it like this, like, we evolved due to DNA given to us in theory, right? And our superpower was the ability to think, to create,
to have
tools, right? Technology.
Well, I think the superpower is really perception, because if you think about so many superpowers, you think comic books and things like that.
Right.
Superman has the ability to fly, which gives him a different perception. He can process things super fast, different perception. So I think perception is definitely, even if you want to get into Batman, that's kind of Batman's superpower, if you will, his perception. He's highly educated, and he's had a lot of money, so he kind of spent his youth traveling around the world learning different things.
Well, that, like I said, seeing different things allows more dendritic processes to grow within your brain, which in a sense makes you smarter.
Okay.
The more knowledge, the more that you see, that's why they tell you to take your kids out, see different things, let him experience different things, right?
Exactly.
Because he'll start to understand faster, right? And these dendrites are basically like little subway tunnels that grow around your brain, right? That correlate not only to, the way you move physically, but also communication amongst the hemispheres, right? So, I mean, this could have been given to us by
aliens.
By aliens, but once again, right? Theories.
Yes.
Theories. And then if I look like an alien, I'm damn good looking alien, man. But but I mean,
these smoke show aliens. Yeah,
right?
My goodness.
The other point though is that how is this whole, like, okay, if we're talking about aliens, let's correspond, just use UFOs. UAPs, same damn thing, right? It's how is this beneficial to our society? I mean, have we actually been visited? I mean, let's get with that first before we get into, how it's beneficial. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, for me personally, we haven't really studied that much of our galaxy, let alone the universe, which is ever expanding. And it would be completely idiotic for me to say that, we're the only living things, when we know that there are tons of planets, at least that we've even researched, like that small, tiny percentage that we already know these planets are within a habitable zone, right? And just because they're in a habitable zone doesn't mean, or they're outside of the habitable zone doesn't mean that aliens can't live there, because they might not be, completely made of carbon. I mean, there's tons of you can just reference the History Channel, for Christ's sakes, or articles that state this.
Yeah, and this is kind of my point.
Have we been visited? I mean,
well, this was kind of my point as far as why I kind of knocked Predator off the list as far as who got it right.
Well, you'd be dead by now. You wouldn't be able to be saying anything, right?
Yeah, I would be dead. I took 2 years worth of Taekwondo.
I don't think that would work, bro.
So
advanced technology, right?
So I might be able to last half a second, but at the same time, I think.
But don't forget about Arnold.
Yeah, well, I think that's why they picked the fight with Arnold and not me, right? They wanted a SmackDown, right? That's kind of the whole point of Predator. But I think that that is definitely us internalizing our own primitive instincts and saying, hey, what if there's an alien species that it is all about this primitive instinct, right? So I think
Haim Eshed.
Exactly. So I think
they're already here.
I think
according to him.
Yeah. So I think as far as have we been visited, and I think it would be it's two questions. One, everything we've talked about, can we lean in favor of giving it some legitimacy, saying yes, there's extraterrestrial life. Like I said, I don't know. I've never
all the data that we've had. It's not necessarily factual, but just data that hasn't changed within the ages. The way they look, as far as the aliens go, and the way these UFOs are shaped.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most interesting things that I think is the book from Christopher Knight. Who built the moon?
That's a good book.
Where he basically kind of outlines the fact that there is no scientific rationale for the existence of the moon.
Right.
Like we just can't conceptualize based on everything we know, and in different periods of our history. Because,
this is his theory, though, right? Yeah.
Well, it's a theory because there may be some point in our history where we can kind of come up with an explanation of the moon, of why it is where it is, and how it came to be. But at this point in our history, we can't explain it. I mean, we're pretty sure it didn't come as sort of a deep Earth asteroid or deep space asteroid and kind of get locked into the.
Isn't he the guy that said it was like porous or something? Or like...
Yeah, there's just so much out there. So it basically, the title of the book kind of is a giveaway. It's the title of the book is Who Built the Moon.
Right.
So he's basically
it was Lord Vader in the Death Star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, not gonna knock it, right? Because if you read the book, he just lays out so many facts about the moon that kind of lead you to believe, there's saying that it was actually constructed would be a plausible way to explain it, because anything else that we have to explain it. I mean, there was a theory that was proffered by Charles Darwin's son, George Darwin, that I
read the article. Yeah,
it's the
about
moon,
how it was molten, it was fluid.
Yeah, how 4.5 billion years ago, the Earth was kind of more soft, like the Earth's core,
Right.
molten, and it was spinning, and it spun off a piece, and that became the moon. But that was proven to be wrong because the Earth never spun that fast, and it would have had to have included a theory about the Earth's atmosphere being much more elongated than it really is.
Well, if it would have spun that fast, like he stated, I mean, we would probably be out where Jupiter is right now.
Exactly.
We would not be where we're at.
Exactly.
As far as distance.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things that, like, it flew in the 1800s, back when Charles Darwin's son
Right.
was the man, right? But nowadays you're like, psh, ha, it would be like, horse and buggy. If you had a nice horse,
don't even
nice buggy back in the day, you were the man. Nowadays, hey, I hop in my I hop in my Corvette, I'm gonna smoke you type thing.
Right.
So, yeah, and so it kind of lays out some interesting stuff as far as what we can explain, and then what would be a next logical conclusion. And
did he say that aliens built the moon, or that they lived there, or what's the deal?
I
can't quite remember. It's like,
once again, it's all theory. But once you kind of accept this idea that the moon is very special, very special.
It's a hypothesis because we need it for the tilt.
Yeah,
right?
It's the moon is so special. There's in one, in the sense that, in terms of how it interacts with what they call the Earth-Moon gravitational system, just how the gravity works. Basically, the moon kind of keeps us at tilt because the Earth is at a 22.5 degree tilt, which causes our seasons. And it also is what makes life habitable on the Earth. Because if we were upright,
so we don't have the dark side of the Earth.
Exactly. If we had no tilt, then the equator, countries around the equator, would be way too hot,
or way too cold,
and then the poles would be way too cold. So we would have a very limited, like you were talking about, the habitable zone. We'd have a very limited habitable zone on Earth. So life would suck, or
because we're
be
created
impossible
from carbon, right? Yeah,
exactly.
So it doesn't mean aliens are, right?
Doesn't mean it, but it's when you accept how special the moon is, there is no resounding theory on how it could have got to be where it is. We know it's not it's not a deep space
Thea
thing.
Impact.
The Thea Impact, yeah, but that theory has problems because the Thea Impact is the idea that some object that was about the size of Mars, which Mars is about half the size of the Earth, hit the Earth, collided with the Earth, and then it sent up a bunch of Earth rock, and that Earth rock sort of came together and formed the moon. But the problem with that is that Earth rock, the oldest Earth rocks, have been dated at about 3.5 billion years old. Moon rock dates at about 4.5 billion years old.
Amen.
So to say they're the same, they would have to be the same age if they have the same origin.
Alien DNA, right? That's why they gave it to us, right? Because it's to allow man to think. Doesn't necessarily, theories aren't facts, right? It's just the ability to understand and to think, I think, and to make a hypothesis is what progresses our society.
Exactly.
Sense, right?
So just this idea that what we're talking about and what you're talking about hits close to home, right? Like with our own moon, as far as the moon is pretty close to home. It orbits the Earth, so it's within Earth orbit. And so just this idea that we don't know, like that's the thing. There, even the Thea theory, the Thea Impact theory,
does it state about intelligence
explain.
Making it? Is it? I mean,
well, that's kind of the flow.
That's the theory behind it.
That's
right?
the kind of flow. If the moon did not come into existence naturally, or at least didn't come into place naturally where it is, because one thing about even though Earth rock and moon is a lot younger than moon rock when it's dated, it is actually has the same oxygen isotope signature, which means it originates from the same distance from our own sun.
But yeah,
right?
that's right.
So it's older, but then it was created in the same place. So,
but that can also go with the Thea Impact, and then also with the theory that, number one, I don't really know if we've actually cored the moon. I don't know if we've gone at least 100 feet deep to get samples. I think everything was just like very minuscule. It was at the top.
Yeah, it's
but it's theory. It's something that's interesting.
It's just there's no explanation. Even the Thea Impact theory doesn't. It has problems. It doesn't explain everything, because the Thea Impact theory would say that moon rock is Earth rock, but moon rock is missing all the heavy metals that Earth rock has. So how did that happen?
Exactly.
Once again, not saying it's not what happened,
so
but
that
we
is in a
can't
sense a way that
explain
they visited, right?
Exactly.
Like a long time ago to help create and move along man. Right?
Exactly.
We're just it's a petri dish, right? We're an experiment. So yeah, I get that theory, man. I think that it's fantastic. I
saying aliens built the moon is actually a more plausible theory than any we have so far.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, I guess, but, my thing is that, if you look back, and the reason why I find it so interesting is, like, just rephrasing what I said earlier, is that none of these images have changed throughout the years of what an alien looks like. Big old eyes, big old head, right? Skinny little mouth. I mean, it goes all the way back. I mean, like I said, knowledge is at your fingertips. You can go look at the History Channel, like Ancient Aliens. I mean, of course, when you go into Ancient Aliens, some of these guys, I mean, the reason why some of these UFO research, hasn't been really trusted is because sometimes the guys that actually report it, they're a little bit out there, right? But I think you have to think about this, though. Like, the people that are a little bit out there, right? I mean, Oppenheimer was out there, right? Einstein was out there, right? Stephen Hawking, in his sense, the way that he spoke about some things in physics was out there. But a lot of the stuff they talk about ring true, right? So my biggest thing is, like, have we been visited? I would assume maybe so. I don't know.
If aliens built the moon, I don't think they would have just stopped there. Like, we're going as far as the moon,
once
and
again,
we're turning back.
It's theory, right? It's theory.
And so I would tend to say, yeah, maybe If you believe in aliens, you could lean in the form of
that.
they visited us.
Well, not knocking you believe, but like I said, like it's been recorded in ancient history. For some reason, we haven't been able to kind of figure that out. Even the Mayans, man. And things that have been written in the Bible seem very much like aliens from outer space coming to visit. I mean, there's even, like, I think it's an ancient Irish story about 4 gods coming down to take over Ireland, which I'm not going to get into, but there's just so much history that talks about things coming from the sky. Yeah. And once again, it's theory, right? And at that point in time, like you said, and it's like that farmer, right? I don't know what it is, so I'm best related to what I can, like a bird, right? Or like these guys from way back in the day during ancient history, right? So, there's a lot of information out there. Can I determine have we been visited? I haven't been visited. And yet again, I don't know if I want to be either, because according to Stephen Hawking, right, and we'll get to Stephen Greer in a second. I know that you did a little bit of research on him, but according to Stephen Hawking, I mean, we got to be really, even Carl Sagan, we got to be careful in the sense that, we're sitting here, it's okay to think and to wonder about what's out there, what life is out there, right? Because it moves us forward, right? In space exploration, just evolution of man and our thought process. But we have to be careful. Sending signals out there is okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean you want to call back, right? So you don't know, man, because in all honesty,
we want the aliens to leave us hanging. Yeah,
right. Well, the whole linguistics thing, like, I mean, you can even counter it to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, how they communicate during in the movie sounds, that famous dun 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 dun, right? And the UFO and the aliens communicate back with that, but that's not really real, right? Because their language and our language, there's a language barrier. What happens if they took that as a threat and they came here, right? So it goes to the whole thing, like, have we been visited? I don't know. But there are things that I think that would be beneficial to society. One was the whole DNA thing, that theory, it helped evolve man.
Yeah, of course.
And then, I mean, what else do you think? I mean, how else do you think it would actually benefit us? Like, and you can even say in regards to us knowing, like, them visiting us, or, just actually seeing a UFO and seeing what this material is made out of. Like, how is that beneficial to us as a society?
I think definitely we can build a better mousetrap. And by that, obviously, I'm not talking about building
a mousetrap per se.
Yeah, hire your local pest control company. You don't want to be dealing with that stuff.
Yeah, first and foremost, yeah.
But as far as being able to do things that we can't do, right? So, like, this idea you were talking about, they're at Edwards Air Force Base, they may have been experimenting with some transdimensional technologies or something like that. So
oh no, not Edwards. That's Bigelow Aerospace.
Bigelow, yeah.
Bigelow, by Robert Bigelow, yeah.
Right.
Privatized.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of on that Elon Musk, like just take us to the next next stage of our evolution.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if we could, because the big thing now is chlorofluorocarbons,
right?
Greenhouse gases. How are we
Right.
treating our atmosphere? Which is, we, as far as we know, we only have one planet that we can kind of hang out on. We should probably treat it well, but hey, why is it always this idea of needing energy for transport? Even electric cars is using some sort of energy, right?
Exactly.
You got to charge it up. So what if we could just jump into a separate dimension and then jump out 5 minutes later in Tokyo, from LA? Well,
my theory is like Roswell, like what you're talking about. Like, but I think we had a conversation about this a couple weeks ago about Roswell and how after Roswell, all of a sudden,
not the TV show,
phones.
the TV
no,
show.
no,
that
no,
was
no,
just
no,
Dawson's Creek.
That was just horrible.
That was Dawson's Creek in
Outer
New Mexico.
space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, think about it. Like cell phones, all of it just tech. There was a technological boom right after that. So it's like this.
What are you telling me, Duke? What are you telling me? What do you think?
I don't know, man. Make
it plain.
I think in a sense that if they were to come, or if we were to get any type of space material from these UFOs, once again, UFOs doesn't necessarily mean there are beings flying inside of it, right? But just material, I mean, it could help us create, interstellar travel. And also, I think it awakens the mind in the sense that, not these, like, awoken people, but awaken the mind of intelligent people to kind of figure out space travel, right? Because what happens if we can't save our planet? What happens if it's already too late? Well, at least in this point in time, right, I think it can help us start thinking about space travel and things like that. But, yeah, and of course, like, I mean, I think we're progressing right now as is, because I think Trump, 2019, right, started the Space Force, right? In this way, it is kind of beneficial, right? So.
Well, this is the interesting thing, right?
Yeah.
So, I remember talking to a friend saying about the Space Force, and she was saying about how the logo looks like Star Trek, right? And we were debating, is that a genius move? Is it a stupid move? I thought it was pretty clever just because of the fact that if you want to sell something...
Advertising.
Yeah, piggyback it.
Yeah.
How many Trekkies are out there? I have a good friend who's a Trekkie. I'm a pretty big Trekkie myself, so I'm like, if you want to sell me something, just piggyback on something I already know and love.
You want people that are interested.
Yeah.
You want people that are interested in that kind of study.
Yeah. Okay, so here was my thing about it, though, right? So I think it was kind of criticized and lambasted when it first came out, especially the fact that it looked like the Star Trek logo, but it harkened back for me to the reaction by Steve Ballmer to the iPhone. When the iPhone first came out, he was like, bro, no one's going to buy this phone. It has no buttons. It's too expensive. Right? That has not aged well as a reaction, right?
Exactly. No, not at all.
Gen 1 iPhone, he's sitting there saying, no, this is going to be one and done.
It's a huge step in technology.
Yeah. So I think, you kind of reserve judgment, pay to play, definitely educate yourself, get involved. But yeah, as far as the Space Force, it kind of makes me think about what General Haim Eshed said, the Israeli Space Directorate. There is a galactic federation, right? Just like the Federation of Star Systems in Star Trek, right? And then he said that Trump was going to, drop the knowledge and let people know this is really going on. There are governments collaborating with different alien species.
Right.
And then he comes out with Space Force, and I'm thinking, these dots seem to connect in the sense that if our governments, plural, not just the U.S. government, but governments know that there is a galactic federation of alien species that are already traveling around the cosmos. Right? They're already traveling around the cosmos. They're trying to figure out how to loop us in, right? Because we're probably near the bottom of the technological spectrum, right? They're trying to figure out how to join us in this thing. I think Space Force, if President Trump wasn't able to or wasn't willing to or was stopped from sort of
doing so,
normalizing this idea that there are relationships between human governments and alien organizations, the Space Force would be kind of like that, wink wink, all right, we're gonna start thinking about,
we're gonna go out there and say, hey,
things.
this is for for us to just have satellites up there and to be able to shoot rockets into outer space and back down to a country. I mean, that's a really good cover up. I mean, it boils down the whole thing too, like with the Area 51. Yeah, I'm never going to tell you whether we have aliens here or not. While Area 51 could be just like this abandoned place where they put soldiers, and, Area 51 could be under our feet, wherever we're at, right?
Could be.
It's kind of like a mislead, right? But I think that's kind of good in the sense, because I think as a populace, not everybody needs to know, right? Back down to Big Papa Bush, but like your whole evolution thing, like the whole thing about evolution, right? I think it was beneficial to society if the theory like rings true. Like they came here, gave us the ability to think. Then they came as our deity to structure our life, right? Because what does religion do? It structures you, right? In the sense that you follow God's path, or Jesus, or whoever it may be, Buddha or whatever, right? Their path in peacefulness to continue on, right? And I think that helped evolve over the ages and the ages and the ages to get us to where we are now, to where we can even talk about the Space Force, or have computers, have technology, have all that kind of stuff. And once again, this is all theory, right? This is all just thinking, hypothesis, right? So,
so I think Duke, you kind of touched on it before, but my question is, so where do you fall outside of a lot of what we've talked about and researched? Where do you fall as far as yes or no column? Do you think there are extraterrestrial life forms out there? And I'm not just talking about some space bacteria, space germ theory, look, bacteria living on some asteroid somewhere.
I'm a man of science.
Okay. All right.
And, once again, without factual evidence, I can neither say that there's not or there is, right? But you can't sit there and say, in an ever-expanding universe with a galaxy that we've barely touched, our own galaxy, the Milky Way, right, that we haven't even barely studied, right, and sit there and say, hey, you know what, there's nothing out there. We are just the luckiest SOBs out there, and we have life. I mean, it's just
it feels good to be a lucky son of a gun, doesn't it? Yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, once again, like, there's a whole bunch of theories out there. There are facts, as in like imprinted pictures and things like that haven't changed for years. Like, the only thing holding me back from saying 100%, hey man, what's up, E.T.? Like Paul from that movie Paul, with a little alien that came in, came into Simon Pegg's life, or whatever character he was playing at that point. But I believe there is life out there, but can I consider it like factual? No, I haven't seen an alien, man. Have I seen a flying object? Yes, one time. But once again, I don't know. I don't know what that was, right? Because we can classify a flying object, once again, as like the Russians having some type of new technology, flying it over, Texas or Florida or California or Maine, or just the whole United States altogether, if it's fast enough, like the Blackbird, right?
Yeah.
So,
the Blackbird had its own test flight. So,
once again, I do believe
anybody who saw the test flight could have been like, whoa, what is that?
Once again, I do believe, but I just need more factual evidence. That's why this whole thing that's coming up, right? The Freedom of Information Act, right? Hopefully, we get information on UFOs and the material that Eric Davis said he put his hands on, or that they put their hands on. I don't want to misquote him, but he knows that it's not made from this planet, right? So that kind of tells me, hey, we're leaning more towards fact. But I mean, I stated mine. I mean, what do you think? I think you're a man of science too. What's your take on it?
Man of science, man of evidence, somewhere around there. I think I hang out. I would definitely say
you're just a bro, a dude.
I am just a dude.
Big Papa Bush.
Yeah, I'm just like Poppy Bush. I would say that very, very, very similar to what you're saying, in the sense that the black swan principle, right?
Yeah.
Just because every swan you've ever seen is a white swan doesn't disprove the existence of black swans.
Exactly.
So just because I have never seen an alien, it does not disprove the existence of aliens.
Right.
So I'm pretty much firmly in the yes column, just based on the numbers. Just try to, you yourself, anyone listening,
right,
try to imagine the number a billion. Try to imagine a billion of anything.
Have you count that in dollars?
Yeah,
it's
have you counted?
unfathomable.
Have you counted from 1 to a billion ever in your life? I think very few people have. Just a billion of anything, like a billion blades of grass. You may not even have a billion blades of grass in front of your house, front or back combined. I mean, the number a billion, I think, gets misunderstood because, we're always talking about billionaires. Forbes has got their list of billionaires. They're always changing. It was Bezos. Then I think Elon Musk became the top billionaire, the richest guy in the world for like 2 weeks. And then because the shares of Amazon rallied, then Bezos took the number 1 spot again. So we're always talking about billionaires and billions of dollars, stimulus packages and all this kind of stuff. So we think we understand the number just because we talk about it all the time. It's like blockchain. People talk about blockchain. Get somebody to explain to you blockchain, right? They're not going to be able to do it. Right. So I just think the idea that we have millions of galaxies like ours out there with billions of planets on them. When you understand the number billion and you're saying billions, plural, of planets in millions of galaxies, when you just start to understand how insane the numbers are.
Infinite. Yeah.
I mean, it's nutty. It's not even worth thinking about because it's going to hurt your brain trying to. I mean, you could be Einstein. It's still like trying to compute how these numbers stack up is going to be a job. So to say that, because we're here and we don't see any other aliens running around, we must be it, out of the just infinite number of possibilities that could exist in our universe. And then we don't even know how much of our universe we can actually perceive. Right?
Of course. It's infinite. I mean, infinite is infinite. I mean, just because universe and then galaxy, galaxy, I mean, even thinking about our one little galaxy, it's just it's hard to find.
Yeah, I went to a museum and I think one time and I think it was like a...
Well, I sure hope museum. You did.
Yeah.
Right? Education, right?
Yeah, we're going to do a podcast about museums. Check those out. But I think it said that it was narrated by Neil deGrasse Tyson. It was this thing.
Yeah.
And I think he said we can only see like 5% of the universe or something like that.
Right.
Just from our vantage point for what we know. So like...
It's like you can't see the opposite end, because it's just so
too far away. Yeah. Like, the light may reach us in like another 100 billion years from the far reaches of the universe. So like,
well, that's the kind of cool thing, right? Right? It's like looking out there in space, looking at stars, is like traveling back in time.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think when you start thinking about this stuff, you're like, what we know and think is kind of irrelevant.
Like starlight that happened billions of years ago is just now arriving.
Yeah,
right?
So the star could be dead.
Yeah, so it could be 1 billion light years away. It's here, and the star could be dead.
Yeah.
In complete darkness, but we're still seeing it. But,
and then we see darkness in parts of the sky where there's actually stars. It's just the stars are new and the light hasn't reached us yet.
But see, it's these things, right? Yeah. It's these things that we didn't know about that we know about now. I mean, that's kind of what leads me to conclude. Yes, I do agree. I do think that there's life out there. That's exactly what I believe you think too.
Yeah, I think you'd have to, just because if you're saying no, there are no aliens, then...
You're very closed-minded.
You need to get over yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, really, okay, show me the proof, bro. There's like billions of planets out there.
We're not going to...
No aliens on any of them? Come on.
We would never judge on this podcast, That's my
I that's what I'm saying. Show me the proof. I'm not judging you, just show me what you got. Because no is a definitive. Saying yes is just saying... I can't prove it personally, but I'm not going to discount anything that I don't know, and there's so much I don't know.
So, there's one last thing that I want to touch. And, the last thing I want to talk about is, do you think it's beneficial if information was revealed to us about UFOs, UAPs, ETs?
Yes, I'm about to get deep, so I'm gonna deepen my voice just a little bit.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna get deep.
Yeah, let's not do this.
Yes. So basically, I'll say this: I think knowledge is neither good nor bad, right?
Yeah, I believe that, yeah.
If I know how to build a nuclear bomb with like 200 megaton payload that could wipe a city out, the knowledge in and of itself is neither good nor bad. Because if you ever saw the movie, going back to Who Got It Right, Armageddon, where they use a nuke to break up an asteroid that's going to collide with Earth and save the planet, right? So the knowledge of building a nuclear bomb in and of itself is neither bad nor good. It's just how you apply it, right? If you apply it to blow up a city, bad. You apply it to save the planet, good.
That's why Oppenheimer and Einstein were very upset about the whole nuclear bomb. I mean, they built it, but they had second thoughts there.
Maybe.
But no,
you guys never told us you're gonna level a city.
Yeah, no, I get your point, man. I think some information should be put out there, but then again, once again, like it all depends on if our society is ready for it, and that's really, really hard to determine. Because, I mean, we can go back to Orson Welles, right? War of the Worlds, 1938. I mean, what happened over that radio broadcast, people were freaking out.
I know what you're talking about,
but,
yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing as, like, Independence Day or, like, some of these movies. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, number one, you hear from the government, hey, there are UFOs. I mean, I think the next day, if I had to go to work, it would be very hard for me to focus.
You're not going to get much done.
Right?
No.
And
no.
then...
Hopefully you're not a surgeon having to do a surgery the next day.
There are some people, aliens. That run on nothing but emotion. People are different, right? Not everybody should be the same because this world would be boring, but there are some people that are, that thrive on emotion. I mean, my God, I mean, it's going to be just like Independence Day where people are going up trying to meet them or they're like throwing stuff through windows and just freaking out and panicking. But no, man, like you said, man, I agree. I just I do think it would be good for information, and knowledge is neither good or bad. It just depends on how you use it, right?
What do you think about challenging them to a dance-off if they come?
Yeah, let's not even get into that, because I don't know, man. I'd hate to see E.T. break down, and with that glowing finger, man.
Maybe they got some moves, yeah,
break
out some of those old school dances.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Well, hey,
so you got the technology, but we got the moves. So if you're gonna take over the planet, challenge first, you have to beat us in a dance-off. Yeah.
But no, hey, you know what? Thanks, you guys, for joining both Cole and I today on this podcast.
Start working on your dance moves.
Yeah, exactly, man. Leave us some comments, man. Tell us what your theories are. What you think. Knowledge is power. Just let us know. Do you have anything to add to that? I mean,
yeah, you go ahead, and if you're interested in going a little bit deeper in any of the topics we presented, go ahead and check the time marker. You can Google the interview with Haim Eshed. You can Google some more about these.
Of course, we're going to leave that in the information.
Yeah, you can do your own research. Don't just stick with what we said, because there's a lot out there, guys. A lot more than we can discuss in the podcast.
Definitely.
So, we will see you on the next cast.
See you guys. Once again, thank you for listening to the Syndicate Theory.
Thank you for joining us on the Syndicate Theory podcast. We hope that you are able to attain knowledge or have formed an opinion on today's topic. If you enjoyed the podcast and would like to share your theories or knowledge, please leave a comment. The Syndicate Theory podcast is powered by open-minded intellectuals like you. So if you would like to hear more, please subscribe and leave a like. As Copernicus stated, to know that we know what we know, and to know that we do not know what we do not know, is true knowledge. Until next time.